has found her name tied to Diddy in recent months after people noticed how comfortable she appeared with the rapper in party snapshots. Now she has been accused of aiding disgraced music artist Sean Diddy Combs and making his transgressions happen over the years. You might recall that Sean Diddy Combs is in some serious trouble right now after multiple people have stepped forward accusing him of engaging with them and others without consent, forcing people into unwanted scenarios, and making people consume things unknowingly, filming and then using that footage from inappropriate parties that he called freak-offs as blackmail to keep it all in the down low, and just generally being a really awful person. And definitely not the kind of guy you'd want your name attached to, especially not if you're someone as famous as Oprah, who has established themselves over the years as someone in firm support of the Me Too movement and being a beacon of hope. Unfortunately for Oprah, she was spotted at Diddy parties of the past, and it is coming back to haunt her. The thing is though, many big Hollywood names have appeared on a Diddy guest list, but not everyone has been a guest at a freak-off. Diddy in general was known as the party host in the 2000s. He hosted the white attire parties, massive birthday celebrations, after parties. They were known for being extravagant and expensive, and everyone wanted to attend. It was a status symbol to be around that much wealth. Allegedly, sometimes the after parties for Diddy events were freak-offs, but many news publications report that often by the time a party descended into a freak-off, many of the famous names had already left. But people aren't just accusing Oprah of attending freak-offs, but also aiding in putting them on. Some sites even saying that she provided the people. Some people even go so far as to claim that Diddy's home was connected to Oprah's via an underground tunnel system, and that's how they did it. And that's a serious thing to say, but Oprah's tunnel accusations don't even just have to do with Diddy, and they didn't start with him either. People have accused Oprah of being part of a larger, multiple parties involved kind of situation that is similar in theme to the Diddy stuff, that directly linked her to some nefarious alleged activity involving forcing younger individuals into bad situations. Surprisingly, one woman claims not only is Oprah involved, but that she was given the address to a tunnel's entrance. Adria English filed a lawsuit against Diddy, claiming she worked for Combs at the Hamptons and Miami parties he threw in the mid to late 2000s. She claimed that the drinks she was given on the job had things in them that she didn't ask for. In addition to allegedly being forced to consume things, English claimed she was also forced to engage in actions she didn't want to do. Adria English did have legal representation, but unexpectedly, her and her team parted ways. The cited reason was irreconcilable differences. The filing read that they disagreed regarding almost every aspect of the litigation. One of the lawyers claimed that her case was great. The issue at hand was that English allegedly undermined their work and went behind their backs, doing things incongruent to advancing her case. That they never lost faith in her case, just in her. And to which English allegedly responded with, "I'm the client, you work for me." But how does this tie back to Oprah? Well, another major point of conflict between English and her representation was that they requested that English refrain from speaking to the media. Pretty soon after parting ways, English spoke to independent media, and the interview made its way around TikTok gossip pages. English claimed that there were tunnels under Oprah's home. She also made the bold statement, she sees what's going on because she's a participant. As of right now, no credible news site has been able to find information confirming this, or a tunnel system under any of Oprah's properties. In fact, some websites have looked into the tunnel rumor and stated it false. I'm not saying that Adria English is lying, just that the information has not yet been officially confirmed. But Diddy isn't the first time Oprah has found her name tied to some questionable characters. She was famously close to the man, who also had a very public falling out with Hollywood after his past transgressions came to light. Name rhymes with Starvey, anyways you get it. Seal publicly called out Oprah on Instagram for her past relationship for this person. The man posted a couple of pictures featuring Oprah interacting with the man, the text reading, "When you have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you are the solution." Seal added his own caption to this photo, calling out an individual for hearing the rumors but not doing anything about it, and implying that the person was pretending that they didn't know what was happening. Sure, Seal didn't name names, but he did post faces, particularly Oprah's. Everyone assumed he was taking a dig at the talk show host. Seal insisted this wasn't the case, it just happened to be Oprah that was the one pictured with the man. It was more about the man in the picture than the talk show host in the picture, and the text was to be taken as a generalization of the entertainment industry rather than a direct attack. However, people weren't quick to forget it. In fact, this spurred some folks to look closer into the relationship between the two major celebrity figures. One Quora user named Marina Kane made a startling connection between the two parties. Back in 2019, 2 documentaries with similar themes premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, but only one seemed to earn positive reviews and media coverage. One doc was about the previously mentioned producer, and the other doc was about Michael Jackson. A Hollywood entertainment lawyer made the bombshell claim that the producer and Oprah helped fund the Jackson documentary to draw focus from the one about him. In my own research about this, I was unable to find anything solid confirming this, just what Oprah said about why she provided financial support to the other one. She said she believed the survivors and that the issue was too important to stay silent. A few years ago, a major scandal revealed that Oprah was not as involved with her Leadership Academy as she made it seem. The Leadership Academy was originally designed and created to be a place to uplift girls in the community, but the good deed was quickly tarnished when the dorm matron was accused by multiple students of acting inappropriately towards them. The matron was arrested and faced 14 charges. In addition to those of inappropriate physical contact, the matron was also accused of getting into a physical confrontation with a dorm parent, and separately injuring 3 people while operating a golf cart. Adding more fuel to this fire, Oprah was later sued by the school's headmistress for over $250,000 on grounds of defamation. This was a direct result of the situation with the dorm matron. While that legal battle was happening, Winfrey had publicly commented that she was doing a total overhaul of the school, that she had lost confidence in the headmistress. The headmistress claimed that these statements made it harder for her to find work afterward. Court papers from the case read that Winfrey had originally intended to hire nurses to be the dorm matrons. However, the headmistress went a different route, and according to an article from CBS News, hired 8 young women from a local company called Party Design. Winfrey's lawyers at the time wrote about this, saying these young women were later found to be totally qualified to handle the position, something the headmistress had been warned about. The 2 women were expected to settle this in court, but instead came to an agreement privately shortly before the date. One feature on Oprah's show later came back to bite the host when it was revealed that the star of that segment was accused of over 600 instances of physically engaging with people without consent. The man was called John of God, and he ended up receiving hundreds of years in prison for those charges, among other things. Oprah happened to give this man a spotlight moment during her programming years prior. It framed him in a good light and made him appear as a miracle worker. Since the accusations, his interviews were deleted from her site and a note was put up in their place with the message that Oprah hoped justice would be served. Oprah spontaneously revealed a shocking secret back in 1995 during a segment on her show. While interviewing 4 mothers who were dealing with issues using substances, Oprah suddenly revealed that she related to these mothers more than anyone could have guessed. The TV star admitted that she also used the substance in question back in the day. The woman being interviewed at the time often referenced Oprah's honesty and strength, and it appeared that comments touched Oprah deeply, and she couldn't help but reveal to the mother that they were more similar than she thought. The host said, "This is probably one of the hardest things I have ever said. I relate to your story so much. I have done this. I know exactly what you are talking about." At the time of admission, it had been about 2 decades since Oprah used the substance, but it's clear that it was always weighing on her. She said, "That is my life's great big secret that has always been held over my head."
In 2013, Corey Feldman went on The View to talk about how the Predator numbers are larger than anybody knows and include a ring reaching up into the Hollywood elite that's been shielded for years by the establishment. Barbara Walters looked at him with disbelief, hands clasped across her stomach, and snarled, "You're damaging an entire industry," as if to say that Hollywood itself was more valuable than wrecking lives. In a lengthy statement posted to Twitter, Charisma Carpenter detailed how Joss Whedon allegedly mistreated her during her time on both of his hit shows that she worked on, Buffy and Angel. Carpenter wrote that after nearly 2 decades of staying quiet and making excuses for traumatizing events, she finally had the courage to call out Joss Whedon for using his power in a bad way on numerous occasions. Following Charisma's allegations, which included claims that Whedon continuously made passive-aggressive threats to fire her, called her fat when she was 4 months pregnant, pitted cast members against one another, and unceremoniously fired her after accusing her of sabotaging the show, several of her Buffy and Angel castmates shared their thoughts on the situation and messages of support. Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Buffy on Buffy, said that while I am proud to have my name associated with Buffy Summers, I don't want to be forever associated with the name Joss Whedon. I stand with all survivors and am proud of them for speaking out. James Marsters, who played Spike, mentioned that while he will always be honored to have played the character, the Buffy set was not without challenges. He does not support harm of any kind, and he was heartbroken to learn of the experiences of some of the cast. He sent his love and support to everybody. So there was a lot of suspicions about the casting couch as a term used to characterize stars who are handed roles in exchange for favors long before the Harvey story story broke. Megan Fox was one who spoke out. She spoke with GQ and laid out the cold hard facts, putting the rumors to rest. The actress stated that she would be honored to meet Hollywood legends and that she would be overjoyed by prospects, and then when she arrived, she would find out that meetings would be just a ruse. Many males in the profession were able to get away with sleeping with a lot of women, but she wasn't one of them. She was like, absolutely not, and that didn't help her career. Film critics and historians mentioned like, hey, does this ring a bell? Because over the years in Hollywood, the risks for a lot of folks were kind of high if you didn't follow the leader, fall in line. Vanessa Marquez had a recurring role on the hospital drama ER during the 90s, playing nurse Wendy Goldman, and alleged that George Clooney helped blacklist her after she spoke up about the harassment that was occurring on the set of the hit show. Now, Clooney has since denied the allegations, saying he had nothing to do with casting, he was an actor and only an actor. If she was told he was involved in any decision about her career, then she was lied to. The fact that he couldn't affect her career is only surpassed by the fact that he wouldn't have. Now, following her stint on ER, Vanessa hasn't really had a lot of work, sadly. Tara Subkoff was an up-and-coming actress in the 90s. She had roles in movies like As Good As It Gets, All Over Me, The Last Days of Disco. She was up for a part in one of Harvey's movies when he offered her the role at a premiere after a party, and then he hit on her. Well, according to her, after she rejected his advances, she found herself on the Hollywood block list. She was the subject of false gossip, labeled difficult to work with, and by that I mean like too difficult to work with. She said it became impossible for her to get work as an actress after that, so then she had to start a new career path, and yeah, poor thing. Harvey, once again, had Mira Sorvino's career derailed after she rejected his advances. She mentioned to Ronan Farrow that she had rejected him on several occasions and had even reported his harassment to a female employee at Miramax, and had then noticed that her career was starting to suffer. She mentioned like there may have been other factors, but she definitely felt iced out and that her rejection of Harvey had something to do with it. In December of 2017, director Peter Jackson came forward and admitted that Harvey had badmouthed Sorvino to him, telling him that she was a nightmare to work with and he should avoid her at all costs. Seeing a pattern here today. Tippi Hedren was Alfred Hitchcock's most iconic leading lady. Under his direction, she went from being a model to a respected actress. Unfortunately, he wanted a little more than to just direct her on screen. He was reportedly quite obsessed with her and made a number of unwanted advances, which she rejected. She said, "He stared at me and simply said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, that from this time on, he expected me to make myself available in that nature and accessible to him, however and whenever and wherever he wanted." Now, when Tippi tried to get out of her contract with Hitchcock, he threatened to ruin her career, and then he followed through with his threat. Because he had her under contract, he was able to keep her on the payroll without actually employing her. He made sure to turn down any film offers that came in from other studios. Now, looking back at it, she actually has a pretty good attitude with the situation. She mentioned that he ruined her career, but he didn't ruin her life. That time of her life was over. She still admires him for his work, but not as a person. After Clint Eastwood dumped Sandra Locke back in 1989, she found herself blacklisted by all of Hollywood's major studios, and this lasted for like a decade. Before the breakup, she had quite the career. She had an Oscar nomination under her belt, she had starred in 6 films of his, she was a budding director, but her breakup with the legendary director was very messy. She arrived home one day to find that he had changed the locks on their shared home and had put her stuff in storage. In response, she filed a palimony suit against him. In 1990, they were able to reach an agreement. Eastwood actually set up a development/directing pact for her at Warner Brothers in exchange for her dropping the suit. But 5 years later, they're back in court. She alleged that he had compensated Warner Brothers to keep her out of work because they had rejected all of the 30 projects that she had proposed and didn't give her any of their in-house projects. When he realized the jury was going to side with Locke, he settled with her for an undisclosed amount. But her career was not magically resurrected. However, it did send out a message in Hollywood that powerful people can and will take advantage of their power, but in this case, we win. Being wrongfully touched is a problem for a lot of folks in Hollywood, be it man, woman, no matter what your gender is. A sad example of this is Brendan Fraser, who claimed in 2018 that at a public event, he went to shake the hand of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association president, or HFPA, Philip Burke, but instead Burke grabbed Fraser's behind. Now, Burke has described this account as a total fabrication, but then, in his 2014 memoir, he admitted to having groped him in jest. Sadly, when you combine this harm, Brendan's divorce at the time, and the death of his mother, it kind of launched him sadly into a depression that, combined with his health problems, led to a break in his career. He had completely turned away from the spotlight, but then he bravely and publicly shamed Burke for the indecency. Sadly, for quite a while after that, Brendan's work phone stopped ringing. But now he's back, and we'd love to see it.
Mark Wahlberg is making headlines for David Beckham's lawsuit against him, but that is just one more controversy on a long list that often gets overlooked. His first noted transgression happened almost 4 decades ago in 1986. Wahlberg and his friend group at the time had a civil rights injunction issued for them because they were throwing things and yelling racially insensitive words. Then 2 years after that, he proved he could be worse, acting in an aggressive manner towards 2 Vietnamese men. He was sentenced to 2 years for that one, served 45 days. 1992 was the incident with his neighbor. Then there was the pay scandal from 2018 when he worked on All the Money in the World. He got $1.5 million for the reshoots. Michelle Williams got $1,000. He did donate his portion after the backlash, which that was good. Still, his track record is an interesting one, and these are just the things we know about. Wahlberg has said though that he has spent the better part of his life trying to make up for his past wrongs. Most of Hollywood seems to want us to believe that paparazzi are out, just roaming like vultures, just waiting to snap the perfect photo, and that's not always true. Sometimes paparazzi might spontaneously be at a location if it's a known celebrity hub, or a hotel before a premiere, or a popular celebrity's house, or even a star-studded town like LA. But those random shots of people leaving the grocery store in the middle of nowhere, or some random coffee shop, those might not be as authentic as we are made to believe. Turns out paparazzi are sometimes called to a location, whether that's just to get some pictures of new talent out there, or to help set up a PR stunt. A paparazzi that regularly works with the Kardashians shared that Kim Kardashian sometimes texts him her location, even flying her favorite paparazzi around the world with her to get those perfect, glamorous, candid shots. Sure, some pictures of celebrities are definitely the real caught-off-guard thing, but definitely not all of them. Rebecca Ferguson may have let us know about a particularly nasty encounter with a castmate, but she is keeping their name out of the headlines, for now at least. Ferguson is in the film Dune 2, which just had its press tour. It was during an interview with Josh Smith on the tour that Ferguson revealed the shocking info that she was once screamed at on set by a co-star. The case was taken up by internet sleuths in no time, theories all over social media about who it could have been. Ferguson has chosen to keep that part to herself. She has since expressed that she shared the story mainly because it was a turning point in her perception of herself and her career, and wanted to share the story because it fit the question Smith had asked her. Still, people are angry about the way she was treated and what was said to her. The unnamed co-star allegedly yelled, "You call yourself an actor? This is what I have to work with? What is this?" Ferguson shared that though it did hurt in the moment, it was the first time she stood up for herself on a set, telling the person to get off her set and F off, and that she never wants to see them again. Since we don't know who she is talking about, we don't know if she never saw them again, but hopefully not. For the longest time, Britney Spears was hiding some pretty dark secrets, but not because she wanted to. During the pandemic, people began noticing something was up with Spears, and soon people started to piece together the restrictive nature of her conservatorship. The news of how her father basically, allegedly, controlled every aspect of the singer's life rocked the internet and led to a large social media outcry to free Britney. The star allegedly had little control over her finances, family life, and just her life in general. Her book, The Woman in Me, dropped in 2023 and revealed more interesting stories and secrets about the singer's life. One particular story about how she got pregnant took the internet by storm. While Britney and Justin Timberlake were dating, she got pregnant with his baby, but felt she couldn't keep the child even though she really wanted to. Justin Timberlake just didn't feel ready to be a father, so Britney felt forced to end the pregnancy. In her book she wrote, "If it had been left up to me alone, I never would have done it, and to this day, it's one of the most agonizing things I have ever experienced in my life." The book highlighted that being the most popular person in the world is not everything it's cracked up to be, and Britney's story showcased just how controlled Hollywood stars might be. Madonna is a bit of a wild child now and no stranger to controversy, but she hasn't always had the easiest time. She's got a pretty rough history with ex-husband Sean Penn. Penn was accused of acting rudely towards the Material Girl singer during their marriage. The breaking point in the marriage happened when Penn allegedly tied Madonna to a chair and left. She sat for 9 hours. She did escape and managed to get to a police station to file a complaint. Penn was charged, but Madonna ended up pulling the complaints and instead filed for divorce, leaving the marriage with "May God bless and keep him, but far, far from me." Sean Penn's career may have suffered briefly, but he's still very active in Hollywood and has been in multiple big films over the years since the 1988 incident. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis tried to keep this secret as hidden as possible, much to the disappointment of their fans and the internet in general. Kutcher and Kunis starred on That 70s Show alongside Danny Masterson. Masterson was found guilty of acting inappropriately towards 2 women and will spend 30 years behind bars for his behavior. Great news to the average person. It was great news that he was even going to trial. It seems the news wasn't so awesome to Kutcher and Kunis, as the pair penned letters to the judge handling Masterson's case asking for leniency. The internet did not appreciate their efforts and was quick to put the actors in their place, so much so that they posted an apology video to Instagram. Alfred Hitchcock's legacy has shielded some of his more deranged actions from the public's consciousness in the decades since he has passed. Many hear the name and recall amazing films expertly put together, but the expert has truly insane ways of achieving what we get to see on the screen. It might surprise you, or not surprise you at all, to learn that the methods of creating his horror movie The Birds were just as horrific as the movie. Lead actress of the film, Tippi Hedren, shares a particularly harrowing story in her 2016 memoir Tippi. She writes about the day they were going to film the famous scene where her character is attacked by birds in the bedroom. Tippi shares that she was told the birds in the scene were going to be robotic. However, on the day of the shoot, she found out from the assistant director that the mechanical birds weren't working, so they had no choice but to use live birds. No choice? Really? Okay. This led to a brutal experience for the actress. 5 days of filming the scene where live birds were thrown at her. Tippi describes the ordeal as brutal and ugly and relentless, but it was going to get worse. On the final day, Hitchcock decided to tie the birds to her while she was laying on the floor, and once action was called, the birds started to peck. It wasn't until one nearly got her eye that she stopped it all and was doing so bad she had to go on a doctor's mandated week of rest. Judy Garland is forever immortalized as the cheerful, sweet Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, but the Ruby Red legacy is hiding a lot more heartache than anyone could have guessed. She didn't have an amazing relationship with her mother, and her schedule while working for MGM was always packed. Days started early and sometimes ended in the early morning of the next day. This led to Garland needing some outside assistance to keep on her feet, the kind of thing that would plague her for the rest of her life. The set of The Wizard of Oz looked magical, but it was no place for a girl. She was placed on a strict diet so she could look as small as possible so she would appear as young as possible. She endured poor treatment from studio execs and other actors throughout her career before passing away in 1969. Another example of a young star that was kept under close watch is Jeanette McCurdy. She is also another example of a celeb who used a book to discuss her complicated feelings surrounding growing up famous. McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, does contain plenty of stories about her mom's treatment of her, which we will get to, but it also contained insider info on the experience of child stars. McCurdy writing that she felt her whole childhood and adolescence was very exploited. She shared that even years later, after being kind of out of the spotlight, she still feels the effects. She writes, "It still gives my nervous system a reaction to say it. There were cases where people had the best intentions and maybe didn't know what they were doing, and also cases where they knew exactly what they were doing. Most people hope that if a child is going to be entering the workforce of Hollywood so young, they would have a good parent at their side. Unfortunately, Jeanette's book highlights that this isn't always the case. She shares stories of times she wished her mom had stepped up more, like when she had felt pressured into doing a bikini photo shoot when she wasn't yet 18. McCurdy continues to share situations that young stars might be put in by adults, including one in which McCurdy was offered an adult drink by someone she referred to as the creator. Jeanette shared that whenever she would bring up how she felt uncomfortable with something, she would receive the comment, "Everyone wants what you have." The way young stars are treated in Hollywood is a profoundly uncomfortable topic, one that was just touched on in the landmark Quiet on Set documentary about Nickelodeon. One of the major stories that was told was that of Drake Bell. Without going into too many details, Bell was one of the biggest young actors Nickelodeon had. He was in a few different shows, mainly Drake and Josh, but would do guest appearances on other shows. He was a big deal. He was known for his outgoing, bright personality. So it came as a big shock to the world to hear about everything he was dealing with behind closed doors in the documentary. A dialect coach that worked with Nickelodeon had been acting inappropriately towards the young actor for an extended period of time. The coach did go to court, but in the opinion of many, did not get an adequate punishment for his behavior. Bell had kept the secret to himself for many years, but has now felt okay enough to share his experience.
Jim Carrey, one of the biggest and highest paid actors of our time, has shared his thoughts on Hollywood since retiring from the spotlight. After the Chris Rock Will Smith Oscars slap incident, Carrey shared his opinions on the standing ovation Will Smith received when winning an Oscar later that night. Hollywood is just spineless, and it really felt like it was a clear indication that we aren't the cool club anymore. Carrey went on to say that Smith should have been escorted from the Dolby Theater after slapping Rock for making an insensitive joke about his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. In March 2022, Carrey announced to Access Hollywood that he was probably retiring from acting. "Well, I'm retiring. Yeah, probably. I'm being fairly serious," he shared. "It depends. If the angels bring some sort of script that's written in gold ink that says to me that it's going to be really important for people to see, I might continue down the road, but I'm taking a break." Carrey added, "I feel like, and this is something you might never hear another celebrity say as long as time exists, I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough." Our second celebrity is Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato starred in many Disney Channel movies and shows like Camp Rock, Princess Protection Program, and Sunny with a Chance. But on a podcast, Lovato shares she, as well as many of her co-stars, were subjected to harsh treatment and multiple strict rules and regulations while working for the company. She said, "You can't be seen at a party with a red cup in your hand because it looks like you're drinking." There was this website called Ocean Up that would take all scandalous things that were happening to Disney actors and put it on there, so we lived in fear of that website. I didn't have food in my hotel room. They wouldn't let me eat the snacks in the mini bar. Then my security walked by my room and was made aware that they had barricaded me into my hotel room. They put furniture outside my door so that I couldn't get out and sneak out and eat if I wanted to. It was that level of controlling when it came to my food, which just made my eating troubles worse. She also stated that she felt that she was practically taking care of her own family. At a certain point, I was paying for the roof over my whole family's head, and my dad had quit his job to become my manager, so his income was coming right from me. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and there was just that pressure of I'm paying for everything and like I need to keep going because if things start to disappear, so does the finances. Our next celeb on the list is Isla Fisher. The actress nearly drowned while filming a scene in Now You See Me. Fisher discussed what went wrong with the stunt, and it is horrifying. "I was in a tank of water. My character is submerged in a tank, and piranhas are dropped on her head," she says. "And whilst we were there, we shot it over 3.5 days. Even though I had a quick release magnetic thing on my handcuffs, the chain that went between my ankles and my wrists was not able to be broken, and it got stuck underneath the slat and I was trapped." The actor also discussed the kill switch in the tank. There was a quick release switch that could have emptied the tank of water in 70 seconds. However, as a result of being tangled, Fisher was unable to reach for the switch. "I was very scared, and I was banging and saying, 'Set me free!' But everybody just thought I was doing fabulous acting. They thought I was being Meryl Streep in that tank. Actually, I was drowning." I guess Hollywood really wanted that good take. Our next celebrity is model Miranda V. The modeling world seems harmless, but darkness looms. Miranda accused Gigi and Bella Hadid's father of inappropriate physical behavior in a lengthy Instagram post in February 2018. "Thank you, Kate Upton. It is time people like @Paul Marciano and Mohammed Hadid get exposed for who they really are. I met with Paul at his guest headquarters. That's actually an apartment. I thought it was a professional meeting, but it was just me, him, and champagne where he inappropriately touched me in an apartment. All to get a test shoot for guests." Former Disney Child star Allison Stoner exposes Hollywood with her new podcast, and some of the claims are alarming. Allison said, "I lost the ability to relate to non-famous experiences after the age of 8. Imagine on your 8th birthday you could never walk outside again without being stopped, asked for photos, or followed, unless you wore a disguise or brought security with you. Allison also mentioned the horror when they had to kiss both Dylan Sprouse and Cole Sprouse for an episode of The Sweet Life. The experience left them with conflicted feelings. Your character may have some arc or transformation that isn't evident upon reading the script of the first episode, Stoner explained. So writers and executives might decide to make your character do anything on the next episode, and it's assumed that you're gonna agree to whatever is scripted. My first kiss, and several of the times I experienced kissing, all happened on camera. On camera. Was I ready for that? No, I felt young and uncomfortable, Stoner said, but they were already under contract and didn't want to appear difficult. Another celeb that has exposed Hollywood is Selena Gomez. The superstar who boasts 430 million followers on Instagram often speaks about the downside of being famous, telling Interview magazine in 2020 that everything she does causes a reaction, saying, "The sad part is, I don't remember a time when that wasn't the case. What has kept me afloat is that I know eventually it'll be somebody else, and I don't mean that in a negative way." She said, adding that fame has still allowed her to talk about things that are important to her. "A huge part of why I have a platform is to help people. That's why I think I'm okay with the magnitude. I mean, I'm not really okay with it, but I'm gonna say that I am because it's worth it." Perhaps the celebrity with the most famous Hollywood horror story is Miss Britney Spears. In 2008, Jamie Spears, her dad, was granted the conservatorship after Britney reportedly struggled with mental health issues and was hospitalized. After Britney was released, a Los Angeles court made the conservatorship permanent, giving her father power over all her finances and her medical decisions. Although Britney was an adult at the time, she was treated like a prisoner and says she was not allowed to leave her house unless granted permission. Her father was making more money than her because he was taking a huge percentage of her earnings and not telling her. Wow, what a father he is. The greed of Hollywood doesn't stop there though. Scientology, a popular organization in Hollywood, has been known to take insane amounts of money from its members, claiming the payments will get them into a higher level in the afterlife. Actress Leah Remini, a former Scientologist, exposes the organization for the way they ruined her life after she left. The actress, who was brought into the church as an 8-year-old after her mother converted to the religion, slammed the organization for its alleged scare tactics and seemingly helping certain members avoid jail for various horrible crimes. Leah met famous Scientologist/actor Tom Cruise while still in the organization, but had to pay $1 million to do so, which she paid. After leaving, Leah sued the organization for alleged stalking and hacking. She states she reportedly had cars chasing her and following her every single day and had hackers hack into her bank account and steal thousands of dollars, all because she left the organization. Yikes. Not all Hollywood drama comes from Hollywood though. And this was the case for Kim Kardashian in Paris. In October 2016, while on a work trip to Paris, Kardashian was robbed at 3 a.m. while alone in her hotel. She was tied up and blindfolded while men in masks raided the hotel room for money. In the end, $10 million worth of jewelry was stolen, as well as 2 cell phones. Kim's sisters and bodyguards were at the club while everything took place, and Kim decided to stay home because she was tired. Boy, was that a life-changing mistake. Kim recalled the fear that she felt during a conversation with the concierge, who was also held hostage in that moment. She says to the concierge, "I'm like, what is happening? Are we gonna die? Just tell them I have children. I have babies. I have a husband. I have a family. Like, I have to get home. Tell them, take anything you want." 2 French judges later charged 12 people in relation to that robbery. Kardashian, who shares 4 kids with ex-Kanye West, has said that she almost lost herself in the year following the crime. Explaining on the Alec Baldwin show in 2018, "I was never depressed, but I wasn't motivated to get up and work like I used to. It shook me." However, the reality star also shared that she has learned to feel grateful for the experience in a way. "There was a lot of me that measured who I was by how much I had. I thought, oh, I'm worth so much," she noted. "That needed to change in me." Our final celebrity of the day is Miley Cyrus. Although Hannah Montana was a family-friendly show, starring in it gave Miley an identity crisis, she says. I had gone from being a character almost as often as I was myself. And actually, the concept of the show is that when you're this character, when you have this alter ego, you're valuable. You've got millions of fans, you're the biggest star in the world, and then the concept was that when I looked like myself, when I didn't have the wig on anymore, nobody cared about me. I wasn't a star anymore. So that was drilled into my head, Cyrus explained. I really had to break that, and I think that's maybe why I almost created a characterized version of myself at times, in the way of being aware of how other people see me. I never created a character where it wasn't me, but I was aware of how people saw me, and I maybe played into it a little bit, Cyrus continued. Speaking of her persona after, Cyrus has also talked about how the costumes and makeup took their toll on her, likely causing some body dysmorphia. I'm this fragile little girl playing a 16-year-old in a wig and a ton of makeup. It was like toddlers and tiaras. She said that being made to look like somebody she wasn't and made pretty for so many years meant that when it ended, she didn't know who she was.
Number 10. Portia de Rossi. In her 2010 groundbreaking memoir, Unbearable Lightness, Portia de Rossi reveals the pain and illness that haunted her for decades, from a time she was a 12-year-old girl working as a model in Australia through her early rise to fame as a cast member of the hit television show Ally McBeal. She also detailed her struggles with and while living in the public eye, and recounted how she survived on 300 calories a day and took 20 laxatives daily, trying to maintain a weight of 82 pounds. According to her memoir, Portia both starved herself and putting her life in danger and concealing from herself and everyone around her the seriousness of her illness, and described the elaborate rituals around food that came to dominate hours of every day. The actress did this all while terrified that the truth of her sexuality would be exposed in the tabloids, and revealed the heartache and fear that comes from living a life in the closet, which was only magnified by her unrelenting desire to be thinner, more in control of her body, and the number of calories she consumed and spent. But it wasn't all bad. Portia also recounted how falling in love with Ellen DeGeneres helped her develop a healthy body image, embrace her sexual orientation, and gain inner peace. Number 9. Janice Dickinson. A strange encounter with Bill Cosby in 1982 was described in the 2002 memoir No Lifeguard on Duty by the self-anointed world's first supermodel Janice Dickinson. In her book, she reveals real moments that she experienced with Cosby and goes into great detail when it comes to taking back the narrative. Janice mentioned how Cosby allegedly answered his hotel room door in nothing but a towel and kissed her. He then took her to dinner and suggested that she follow him back upstairs. The memoir was pretty explosive at the time and would come back into relevance in 2018 when she chose to testify in court to Cosby's crimes. The comedian was once known to millions as America's Dad, famous for his clean brand of family comedy and his award-winning work with children's programming. So Janice's memoir really did help expose Cosby's double life, as eventually more than 50 women came out claiming that the star slipped them illicit substances and took advantage of them while they were unconscious. And in April of 2018, an 80-year-old Cosby was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison, although he would eventually be released in 2021. Number 8. Corey Feldman. In his deeply personal 2013 memoir, child star and teen heartthrob Corey Feldman exposes the darkness that loomed behind his rise to fame. Although he undoubtedly had a successful career, famous friendships, and high-profile relationships, Corey reveals a side to his star-studded life that no one knew about, and it's full of tragedy. He came from a broken family that he emancipated himself from at the age of 15. As a teenager, he suffered physical, emotional, and sexual violence. The Stand By Me star was also arrested and struggled with addiction throughout his time as a successful working actor. But most shockingly, Corey also implied that his close friend Corey Haim's lifelong battle with addiction was the result of being preyed upon by a powerful older man. Following the book's publication came rampant speculations about the identity of the offender, and it's something that readers still argue about to this day. His memoir, Choreography, weaves a heartbreaking story of pain and survival that reveals just how dark the industry can really be. Number 7. Holly Madison. Former Playboy bunny and Girls Next Door star Holly Madison dished on how oppressive life with Hugh Hefner really was in 2015's Down the Rabbit Hole. Madison described the many bizarre rules and rituals that Hefner imposed upon his girlfriends. For instance, that they needed to wear matching flannel pajamas, engage in group dressed in tiny skirts and bralettes, and had a daily curfew of 9 p.m. The memoir tells the story of Madison's time with Hefner from 2001 to 2008 and its aftermath. She goes into great detail about the reality of her life behind the cameras, how her depression in the Playboy mansion reached harrowing depths, yet she felt trapped there. She also opened up about her unwillingness to admit to anyone how sad she really was, and Hefner's emotional control over her. The book also explores her time on the reality show The Girls Next Door and the weirdness that was pop culture in the early 2000s. When speaking about her book, Holly said, quote, "I felt like I had something to say about being in the midst of that whole thing that was going on where Paris Hilton and Jessica Simpson and Kendra was so celebrated, and I was a part of it too, for being dumb on TV. Part of the reason I wanted to write the book was to show the other side of it, which goes to show you just how much of it was all for the cameras." Number 6. Shania Twain. The Grammy-winning country singer confronted her childhood demons when she wrote her 2011 memoir, From This Moment On, describing how her stepfather Jerry was physically, sexually, and verbally violent towards her and her mother Sharon. In a frank and often shocking autobiography, the singer reveals graphic and personal details about her rags to riches story and the price of ambition and success. Throughout her memoir, it also became clear that Shania experienced a harrowing degree of poverty and hunger. For instance, she claimed that sometimes there was only bread and mustard for her and her 4 siblings to eat, and they often wore plastic bread bags to cover their shoes to protect their feet during winter, and regularly went to school without lunch. The singer also had to deal with a double betrayal in her life. She wrote about the heartache that she went through when she found out about the affair between her husband of 14 years, Robert Lang, and her best friend. As a result, Shania became so distraught that she literally lost her voice to spasmodic dysphonia, which left her unable to sing. So her memoir explores how she worked through all that heartbreak. Number 5. Sharon Stone. She became a Hollywood icon and a household name after her role in Basic Instinct, and in a 2021 memoir, The Beauty of Living Twice, she finally reveals the vulnerability behind her femme fatale persona. She goes into great detail about her experiences in Hollywood, like how she was tricked into that famous shot in Basic Instinct, and ill-equipped for fame when it finally came to her. She was also routinely taken advantage of in the male-dominated film industry. She claims that the filmmakers were not entirely honest about what they captured with the camera, and so they didn't have her complete consent to put that scene in the film. Quote, "I do think we have to create a think tank that really addresses what is a crime, what is a felony, what is consent." The name of her memoir actually comes from a life-changing brain hemorrhage that she suffered in 2001 that almost killed her. It left her without the basic ability to function, and she ended up losing her family, her career, and a huge part of her life, which she had to start again from the ground up. Stone also talks about how she went through a childhood of and violence to a career in an industry that actually brought back a lot of those memories for her. Although in Hollywood, it was all hidden under the cover of money and glamour. Number 4. Leah Remini. A former longtime Scientologist, King of Queens star Leah Remini opened up about her experiences in the church in her 2015 memoir, Troublemaker. As a teenager in the church's Sea organization, Remini said that she was reprimanded for sunning by the pool at the Scientology-run Sandcastle Hotel in Florida, and as a punishment was taken out to sea on a boat, thrown overboard, and nearly drowned by a group leader. Not only that, but she was also once fined $40,000 after confessing to stealing food from the headquarters 20 years earlier. In her memoir, Leah also made some shocking allegations about several well-known Hollywood celebrities. In fact, she recalled a time that her and her husband, Angelo, spent time at Tom Cruise's Beverly Hills mansion when he invited a group of well-known Scientologists and other celebrities, including the Smiths. She actually called Will and Jada Pinkett Smith famous friends of the church, and even mentioned the Scientology school that they opened, revealing that despite Jada's denial, she is indeed good friends with Tom Cruise and an active member of the controversial religion. Number 3. Jeanette McCurdy. Described as both heartbreaking and hilarious, iCarly star Jeanette McCurdy's bluntly titled memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, gives fans a glimpse into what really went on behind the cameras, something that up until now, fans have only been able to speculate about. Jeanette exposes her traumatic experiences on Nickelodeon and the disturbing truth about how she was mistreated by her mother, who pushed her to be a child star, noting that the persona she was known for throughout her youth and her young adult life was a front forced upon her by her mom, who, in addition to everything else, was extremely physically inappropriate with both her and her brother, even when they were teenagers. Jeanette also discusses the perils of young fame and reveals that she developed anorexia as a child, and talks about why she ultimately quit acting altogether. She also details numerous instances where she felt exploited as a teen actor, both on and off set. The actress refers to the person behind the demands as simply the creator throughout the memoir, never naming them. She simply describes them as mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying, calling a time when she was filming an episode of iCarly that he insisted that she wear a bikini instead of a one-piece swimsuit which she preferred. The revelations in her new book are absolutely shocking, and they really expose the traumatic experience of being a child star. Number 2, Christina Crawford. At the height of her fame in the 1940s, Joan Crawford had a considerable reputation to uphold. She won a 1945 Best Actress Academy Award for the lead role in Mildred Pierce. She lived in a beautiful house in Brentwood, LA, and used her wealth to adopt and raise 4 children, including Christina Crawford. For all of this, Joan was celebrated in the public eye and had extensive magazine spreads about her happy family life. But to her daughter, the facade was a complete lie, and eventually her frustration at the discrepancy between her mother's private existence and her public reputation bubbled over. In 1978, she published Mummy Dearest, which told the truth about her mother's character, that she was a sadistic perfectionist. It was the first tell-all celebrity memoir to talk so openly about childhood and subsequently was a worldwide sensation upon its release. In fact, it stayed at the top of the New York Times bestseller list for 42 weeks, and even resulted in the 1981 film adaptation starring Faye Dunaway that would go on to become a cult hit. To this day, most people associate Joan Crawford with that infamous scene where she launches into a vicious tirade after discovering Christina's dresses were hung up on wire clothes hangers. So it's safe to say that her reputation never recovered. And coming in at number 1, Rose McGowan. In her 2018 memoir Brave, the outspoken actress takes readers behind the scenes of her life in Hollywood, where she has become known as one of the fiercest and realest women fighting to expose the ugly truth about Harvey Weinstein and the systematic misogyny that has defined the industry for so long. The most outspoken of all of Weinstein's accusers, McGowan opens up about when she first met the movie mogul at the Sundance Film Festival, but only refers to him in her book as the monster. She was at the premiere of her 1997 film Going All the Way when he sat behind her. The next day she was sent to his hotel room, where the two talked about films and her acting goals. But as he walked her out, McGowan writes that he pushed her into his bathroom, forcibly backed her into the wall, and ripped off her clothes. But most shockingly, after the incident, the actress was driven to a photo op with her Phantoms co-star Ben Affleck. When she told him what happened, he simply said, "Damn it, I told him to stop doing that." Her memoir couldn't be more relevant to current events, as to date, 84 women have come forward with allegations against Weinstein, and he is currently serving a prison sentence of 23 years.
10. The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger was making moves as a romantic comedy and drama actor, starring in movies like 10 Things I Hate About You and Brokeback Mountain. But it was his turn as the clown prince of darkness, the Joker, in Christopher Nolan's 2008 Batman The Dark Knight that changed his life. He delivered what is considered to be the greatest performance of not only his career, but as the Joker. Still being brought up whenever the debate of who is the best comes to light. Heath was incredible, but Jack Nicholson will always be my Joker. Unfortunately, only a few months before the film released in theaters, Ledger suffered a fatal substance overdose and passed away. In the years that followed, many speculations began circulating that the role may have had something to do with his poor mental health. While his family adamantly denies this, the proof is in the pudding. When the production began, Heath isolated himself from his fellow actors, and he kept a diary of disturbing images to enter the realm of a psychopath. Following the end of the shoot, he reportedly found it very difficult to sleep without the help of sedatives and painkillers, which were the combination that ultimately led to his overdose. It seems that playing the Joker takes a toll on any and all who don the bright green wig, so please be warned, if a man from DC ever walks up to you and offers you a role, just say no and walk away. Number 9. Ray. Jamie Foxx is one of the most talented men in Hollywood. This guy can sing, he can act, he can dance, and and he can write. He does it all. Jamie's career has been filled with a few misses, but mainly hits, and his hits hit hard. Jamie has appeared in many big budget flicks over his career, like Collateral alongside Tom Cruise, White House Down with Channing Tatum, and he even took a step into the more serious direction when he played musician Ray Charles in the biopic about his life called Ray. Jamie played the blind piano player for roughly 3 months of shooting, but to better portray the character and to get into the proper mindset, Jamie had the production team literally glue his eyes shut while filming. This was a bit of an extreme reaction, and Jamie suffered dearly for it. Not only could he not see anything while he was on set, but he had to go to the hospital after some of the glue seeped through his eyelid and made contact with his eyeball. Thankfully, he suffered no permanent damage from the role, and he did receive the Oscar for Best Actor that year, so I don't know, I guess the pain and discomfort was well worth it. Number 8. The Blind Side. The Blind Side was a 2009 biopic about the true story of NFL star Michael Oher. In the film, he is a homeless young man who's adopted by a wealthy family and eventually makes his way to college and the NFL. Unfortunately, it was recently revealed that that was mostly just BS. Recently, the subject of the film, Michael Oher, shared allegations against the Tuohy family, claiming that they had tricked him into signing himself into a conservatorship and not adoption papers like he was led to believe. According to new information released by the studio and Michael himself, the Tuohys negotiated a deal with 20th Century Fox that left Oher without any payment for the rights to his name, likeness, or life story, while the Tuohy family received a contract price of $225,000 and 2.5% of the film's net proceeds. That film has since grossed about $300 million, but according to Michael, he hasn't seen a penny. Wait, those aren't a thing anymore. Okay, he hasn't seen a nickel. No, it's not as good. The paperwork made it so that the family would be in complete control of his contracts when it came time to sign up for football, with Papa Tuohy being the main culprit of the scam. The Tuohys came forward and claimed that Michael is lying and that they actually have records to prove that they never made any money off the movie. But they did not deny tricking him into signing fake adoption papers, so I'm gonna go with Michael on that one. Number 7. Poltergeist, 1981. Poltergeist brought together two legends of the 20th century cinema with very different sensibilities. We had the director Tobe Hooper, best known for the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Hooper's work was gritty, dark, and pretty much just something of a downer. Coming from a much more family-friendly sensibility, we had co-writer and producer Steven Spielberg. Spielberg's movies were high budget and kid-inclusive, so if you put them together, you get Poltergeist, a gritty horror movie with an Amblin sheen and soundtrack heavily featuring child actors. One major thing that this movie had going for it was its use of practical effects, creating some truly uncomfortable and creepy scenes. Like, don't even get me started on that clown. But one dark fact behind the picture was the use of real-life skeletons for one of the last few scenes in the movie. Without telling the actors, Steven and the crew ventured off to a nearby university to acquire some authentic skeletons that were reportedly hung up in classrooms to study. Poltergeist was plagued with a number of supernatural issues like set pieces falling on their own, equipment malfunctioning, and the darkest fact of all, several of the cast and crew involved with this movie passed away shortly after filming. Almost a Final Destination type situation. I'm not sure what Steven was expecting though. How are you gonna bring in real life human remains on a set and think that everything's gonna be fine? Number 6. The Wizard of Oz. This classic story is one of the most loved movies of all time, first premiering in 1939 and still being viewed by many people to this day. However, despite its success, many view the film as being a little bit cursed. There were so many serious accidents on set of the film, from the two actors playing the witch's winged monkeys crashing to the ground when their wires broke midair, to the Wicked Witch's stunt double being severely burned by a stunt gone wrong. According to a writer for the New York Times, many of the special effects being done for this movie had never actually been done before. For instance, the makeup and prosthetics used on Buddy Ebsen, aka the original Tin Man, essentially poisoned him as the makeup was made of pure aluminum dust. After 9 straight days of shooting, he was taken to the hospital and made to sit in an oxygen tent. When he wasn't getting any better anytime soon, they decided to recast him and hired Jack Haley to finish the shoot. This time, instead of applying aluminum powder directly to his skin though, they mixed it in with a paste and painted it on his body. Wait, they could have just done that the whole time? Number 5. Now You See Me. Now You See Me was a little action movie about an FBI agent played by Mark Ruffalo chasing a team of magicians who pull off elaborate bank heists during their performances. Fun movie, good premise, eh. During one scene in particular, actor Isla Fisher was placed in a glass tank and chained up for an escape act. The stunt team set her up with a magnetic release so that the metal chains that were around her body wouldn't tangle. Oh, but boy did they! The chains wrapped themselves around Isla in a way that actually prevented that mechanism from working. The team had placed a kill switch in the tank that could drain it in 70 seconds, however, as a result of being tangled, she couldn't reach the switch. While the crew did eventually catch on that she was in real trouble, it wasn't before the cameras rolled and captured her genuine terror. The clip taken during this incident was actually left in the final product of the movie, so when she's banging on the glass and begging to be set free, that's not acting. Those are true, genuine screams of fear. The stunt gone wrong, coupled with the poor reception of the film, actually caused her to step back from the sequel, instead being rewritten and recasted as Lizzie Kaplan. Number 4. The Exorcist. Even though people are scared by different elements in horror, everyone can agree that The Exorcist is one of the scariest movies ever made. The Exorcist focuses on a girl named Regan McNeil who is possessed by a demon, and whose only hope is in the hands of an exorcist and a priest. Now, for some reason, this movie was released on December 26th in 1973, so nobody was very jolly when they saw this one. This movie had a strange superpower when it was released. It actually had the ability to make its viewers literally vomit, to the point where theaters were handing out barf bags to anybody stopping by. The most horrifying part of this flick, though, was not the film itself, but rather the behind-the-scenes shenanigans that were taking place. Two cast members, Jack McGowan and Vasiliki Malaros, both passed away after filming commenced, which was pretty strange as their characters in the film also pass away. The film was also plagued by non-supernatural villains like its director, William Friedkin, who would literally swat actors and fire his personal pew-pew device in the air to get them riled up for scenes. While the film is still considered to be one of the most terrifying movies of all time, sounds like the experience on set was like 10 times worse. Number 3. The Master of Disguise. This next entry involves a brief mention of the events of New York in September 11th in 2001, so if that is a very sensitive topic, please skip to the next entry, no harm done. The Master of Disguise was supposed to be the first of many solo flicks starring SNL alumni and comedy legend Dana Carvey. He played Pistachio Disguisey, a man who discovers he comes from a great long line of super spies capable of pulling off elaborate disguises to take down their targets. It is a straight up weird movie that I loved as a kid, but as I get older it just gets cheesier and cheesier, not in a good way. Unfortunately for the cast and crew, they were filming one particularly ridiculous scene while a real world tragedy was taking place. The infamous turtle scene, where Dana feels that he may not be turtly enough to be in the Turtle Club, was being filmed on September 11th, 2001, on the same day that the Twin Towers fell in New York. In the middle of filming a take, the cast was informed of the tragedy and they took a moment of silence. Unfortunately for Dana, he had to spend that moment of silence in full prosthetics. When recounting the story now, he seems to take a lighter approach and he laughs it off, but at the time it was a very dark and very uncomfortable moment for the entire crew. Number 2. Singing in the Rain. I'm singing in the rain, I'm singing in the rain. Ow, my foot hurts! That's exactly what happened to Debbie Reynolds in 1952's Singing in the Rain. For those who may not have seen this film, the story followed a silent film star falling for a chorus girl just as he and his delusional, jealous screen partner are trying to make the difficult transition to talking pictures in the 1920s. That's right, movies used to be in black and white and nobody talked. And when you did it, it was some weird magical thing called a talkie. Fun movie fact for you. For the shoot, Debbie Reynolds was made to film a song and dance sequence that left her in need of a new pair of shoes and a doctor. For the Good Morning dance number of the film, Reynolds and her co-star Gene Kelly were made to jump over a couch at the same time, which was a take that apparently took 40 tries to master. You know how shoes are super comfy these days? Well, in the 1950s, not so much. At the end of the long day, Reynolds had literal pools of red life juice in her shoes. Life juice is the stuff that comes out of you when you're impaled. Despite being a fun dance sequence, the reality is that Debbie is silently suffering through the entire thing. And at number 1, The Shining. In 1980, Stanley Kubrick adapted and directed a film version of Stephen King's famous horror novel, The Shining. The film itself was very well received by most people except for Stephen King. Everyone attributes their joy to the raw performances given from Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson. Jack played the unhinged groundkeeper, sent mad by his isolation and the spirits that lurk within the walls of the Overlook Hotel, with Shelley acting as his wife. The performances come from a very dark place, however. The director decided that the best way to get Shelley to deliver a top-tier performance was to make her life on set just a living hell. Her time on the shoot was spent being berated by Stanley, who actually told the crew to ignore her cries of frustration and to disengage emotionally, and she was made to refilm scenes over and over again, to the point where the film actually holds the Guinness World Record for the most recorded takes of one scene. They took an astonishing 127 takes of the infamous staircase scene. Following the end of the shoot, Shelley decided to stop acting altogether and focus on maintaining a healthy personal life. Thankfully, it seems that she's done just that, as she is set to make her return to the acting world in a new horror flick called The Forest Hills, without Stanley Kubrick behind the camera.
On February 26, 2024, music producer Rodney Jones filed a lawsuit against Diddy, and on March 25th, Homeland Security investigations served search warrants in the early morning raids on Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. Diddy was then arrested this week after being accused of criminal activity from at least 2008. Now, he has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His lawyers proposed a bail package that included a $50 million bond, co-signed by Diddy, his mother, and other family members, as well as home detention, surrender of his passport, and a visitor log that would be submitted to pretrial services each night. But the judge denied this, which honestly was the right choice. It seems like a lot of different people were involved in this case. On the other hand, Diddy's lawyer has said that he's not afraid of the charges, and he also added that he thought Diddy was a target of an unjust prosecution, and the case of Diddy is still ongoing, and it will be very interesting to see what comes out of it. Then it was revealed this year that Hollywood couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds aren't as nice as they appear to be. Blake's movie It Ends With Us was released, and it came with a lot of drama. Now, Blake produced and starred in the film, while it was directed and co-starred by Justin Baldoni. Things started going downhill during the press release of the film, as people noticed that the cast seemed really disconnected from each other. Then, Blake was called out for promoting the film in a lighthearted way when it covers serious topics. Now, she also used the film to promote some of her brands, which just weren't appropriate. It was then revealed that her husband Ryan helped out on the film and even rewrote one of the scenes. Not to mention, Blake also made her own edit of the film. Then, a couple weeks ago, it was revealed that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's entire relationship is fake, and that they were planning to break up at the end of September. Paperwork was leaked that was created by Los Angeles-based firm Full Scope, which revealed a strategy on what to do when the pair broke up, and said the date for an announcement was September 28th. Now, it also outlined a supposed plan to release an official statement at the end of this month, 3 days post-breakup, to allow the initial media frenzy to settle and ensure clarity. It added that the announcement would be gracious, respectful, and stress mutual respect. But a spokesman for Full Scope insisted that they were entirely false and fabricated, and were not created, issued, or authorized by this agency. Now, last year, actor Matthew Perry was found dead in a hot tub at his Los Angeles home, and now new details have been released surrounding his death. He had been treating depression with prescribed medication, and no foul play was expected, but now 5 people have been arrested in the case of his death. Now, Matthew's live-in assistant, Kenneth Amasa, was the person who found the actor dead. Investigators say that he was also the one who injected Matthew with the medication that led to his death. Now, Kenneth never received medical training and knew little, if anything, about the medications. Authorities say Matthew purchased 20 vials of medication for a total of $55,000 between September and October 2023. His death could have been prevented, and overall, it's just such a sad story and outcome, but at least those responsible will be facing justice. Now, Alec Baldwin was indicted by a New Mexico grand jury and recharged in connection with the fatal 2021 Rust incident. Now, the first criminal charges brought against Alec were dropped in April 2023, but according to New Mexico law, he could have faced up to 18 months in prison with the new charges. In January, a source close to the family spoke to People about how Alec and his wife were handling the indictment. The insider shared that the pair found the news frustrating and very stressful. They knew there was a possibility there would be a new indictment, the source told People. The back and forth is hard. Then there was an announcement that the pair were getting their own reality show to show their everyday lives with their children. Now, this announcement shocked a lot of people, thinking that they agreed to the show to fix his image and bankroll his legal fees. In the end, though, the case was dropped once again, and Alec hasn't faced any more consequences. Then this week it was revealed that Miley Cyrus is getting sued over a song she allegedly copied from Bruno Mars. Tempo Music Investments, a company claiming it owns share of the copyright for Bruno's song When I Was Your Man, is claiming that Miley's song Flowers is a copy. In the lawsuit, it said it is undeniable based on the combination and number of similarities between the two recordings that Flowers would not exist without When I Was Your Man. Accordingly, plaintiff brings this action for copyright infringement arising out of defendants' unauthorized reproduction, distribution, and exploitation of When I Was Your Man, the complaint adds. Now, the company wants Miley and other defendants to stop reproducing, distributing, or publicly performing Flowers. The company is also seeking damages, but they have not released an amount yet. Now, Demi Lovato recently released a documentary recalling everything they went through while being a child star. I wouldn't end up where I am had I not made all the choices leading up to this point, but it came at a price, Demi explained during the doc. There's definitely not a manual on how to navigate this industry at such a young age. Now, the documentary featured other young stars like Drew Barrymore. Now, in the doc, the actors talk about bullying, how they were mistreated, and how they self-medicated to get through the pain they went through. Now, these stars hid a lot of things that were going on in their lives. It was a real eye-opener for a lot of people, and with these stars being honest, Demi is hoping that stricter laws can be made and followed when it comes to young people in the entertainment industry. Now, one of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's daughters filed paperwork to legally remove Pitt from her name the day she turned 18. Shiloh Nouvelle Jolie Pitt submitted a petition in Los Angeles County Superior Court on May 27th to change her name to Shiloh Nouvelle Jolie, the Los Angeles Times reported. She was granted this change, but she's not the only family member who did this, as in the playbill for the new musical The Outsiders, which their daughter Vivian helped Angelina produce, the teenager is listed as Vivian Jolie instead of Vivian Jolie Pitt. Then there was a time their son Pax made a Father's Day post to Brad, and it was leaked years later. The post said, "Happy Father's Day to this world-class a-hole. You time and time again prove yourself to be a terrible, despicable person. You've made the lives of those closest to me a constant hell. You may tell yourself and the world whatever you want, but the truth will come to light someday, so happy Father's Day, you effing awful human being." Recently, it's been said that Meghan Markle has reportedly been labeled Duchess difficult by US staffers. Josh Kettler, who was the top aide for the Duke and Duchess, quit his job in August after only 3 months, joining the increasing number of people who are leaving them. An insider aware of the situation told The Hollywood Reporter, "Everyone's terrified of Meghan, she belittles people, ignores advice, and both she and Harry frequently change their minds, leading to poor decision making." But the email in question, where she was demanding and rude, was honestly super normal. She woke up early and emailed one of her staffers hoping to have a meeting with them. She was nice, and the whole situation was blown out of proportion. Now, it appears that there's a bunch of people out there who are trying to make her look bad for no reason. And finally, back in June, Justin Timberlake got arrested for driving under the influence. Sources connected to law enforcement said Justin was at the American Hotel partying, and almost immediately after he left and began driving, he blew a stop sign. Cops saw that and began to follow him, and it's then been said Justin began swerving, so the cops pulled him over. TMZ sources said cops performed a field sobriety test and asked Justin to take a breathalyzer test, but he refused. In the end, Justin was handcuffed and arrested, and the whole incident was recorded on a police officer's body cam. He was then charged with 1 count of DWI and cited for running a stop sign and failure to keep in his lane. Now, last week he pleaded guilty to a reduced charge in his drunk driving case and was ordered to pay a $500 fine and perform community service. He has to do 25 to 40 hours of community service at a nonprofit, and he was ordered to make a public safety announcement. Yeah, that isn't a good look, and now people are accusing him of getting off easy because he's a celebrity.
10. Justin Timberlake. One of the most discussed sections of The Woman in Me, a memoir by Britney Spears, is of course a revelation on what really happened while she was dating her Mickey Mouse Club co-star Justin Timberlake. After meeting JT in the clubhouse, the two sparked a romantic connection, and their connection was strong, but unfortunately Britney had to make a terrible decision in the year 2000 when she found out she was pregnant, and at first she was very excited about the whole thing because she wanted to be a parent. In her book, she revealed that she had planned on starting a family with Justin, but I guess it was was just gonna be a little bit earlier than she expected. Well, it turns out Justin, not so excited, and told her that they were both too young to start a family, continuing to remind her that their careers would also need to be put on pause. This revelation may be part of the reason that Justin reportedly was so nervous leading up to the book's release, and since the book's release, he's had to turn off his Instagram notifications because, hey, he's terrible and people want to let him know. Brittany revealed that if the decision had solely been left to her, she would have gone through with the pregnancy, but she decided to go the opposite route instead. She claims that she only did this because Justin clearly didn't want to be the dad, and in the book she said that looking back, it was one of the most agonizing things she had ever experienced in her life. Number 9, Jamie Foxx. So this is one of the more recent secrets that's been revealed, so to speak. So far, this is just an allegation, but a woman is suing Jamie Foxx for alleged physical mistreatment at a rooftop restaurant. The allegations are being backed up by 2 eyewitnesses, a friend of the victim, and a security guard who saw the whole thing go down and let it happen. According to the unnamed woman, she spotted Jamie at a restaurant around 11 p.m. and after a couple of hours decided to ask him for a picture. Jamie was apparently under the influence, and according to the accuser, he became very handsy as the night progressed. He said yes to the picture and then apparently said that the woman had a model's body and smelled good. Then there are some darker and honestly pretty disturbing details that I can't go into in this channel, but if they're true, something tells me Jamie's career may be done. Truly just dark stuff. The court case is being brought forward as the Survivors Act is about to be implemented in the US. This act allows victims of physical offenses to bring civil cases to court after the statute of limitations has expired. The statute means that after a certain amount of time has passed, the victim can no longer file criminal charges. However, the new act means that civil cases are good to go. So we will see what happens to Jamie in the coming weeks. Number 8. Lizzo. Lizzo may have been a public advocate for body positivity, but as part of the lawsuit being brought up against her, it looks like all that positivity may have just been an act that she was putting on to make herself more universally loved. Now, I'm not a small man. In fact, I have what many call a dad bod, and I'm very cool with it. So I'm not dismissing the notion that we should love and respect ourselves, but come on, she made it a massive part of her personality on camera when it sounds like the only body she actually cared about was her own. According to her dancers, Lizzo regularly shames her team and makes them feel that they are too large or gaining weight, with several dancers confirming these claims. One of the dancers, Crystal Davies, who is part of this lawsuit, was fired for secretly recording a meeting between herself and Lizzo. The meeting was about the dancer's performance on stage recently and her apparently disliking the weight that she had been gaining, claiming that she wasn't committing to the role. She was also bringing her dancers to weird places and making them do weird things. Lizzo was at a club in Amsterdam's red light district when she coerced, aka forced, a dancer to touch a woman's bare chest despite saying no several times. She also made them eat bananas from some no-no zones. Again, nobody's idea of fun. Currently, there is still a court case up in the air and no one knows what will happen, but so far Lizzo is maintaining that she did nothing and will prove her innocence. Number 7, Russell Brand. Even before the controversy surrounding Russell Brand came up this year, this dude was unwelcome everywhere. Royal events, awards shows, kids' birthday parties, who knows? For anyone who doesn't know, I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you, but Russell Brand is a terrible person. The man known best as a comedian, a bringer of joy, was secretly manipulative, aggressive, and at times violent with his ex-partners. Following in the news that a documentary about his life and career was set to release on BBC's Channel 4, several complaints got filed against him, alleging mistreatment during their time together. The allegations were actually reinforced by Russell's ex, Katy Perry, who they dated for quite some time, and she came to learn that Russell was short-tempered, opinionated, and stubborn. Russell's career was canceled, and he's currently awaiting a trial. Number 6, Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is currently the man behind Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. He was written as an important person in that franchise, being a villain in a couple of movies and recently a villain in the Loki TV show. Unfortunately for Jonathan Majors, an ex has come forward and alleged that Jonathan was physically violent towards her while they were together. Since March of this year, Majors and his team had been adamant that the situation was blown out of proportions and that there really is nothing to be upset about, which is always a fun thing to say to people during these situations. In fact, in June, Majors filed his own cross-complaint accusing his accuser. The prosecutors refuted these claims and told him they had no plans on prosecuting Grace Jabari, who was the woman who accused him. Majors has been dropped from his agency, and so far his role on TV and film is pretty up in the air. I mean, his character Kang may even be kicked out of the MCU and replaced by Doctor Doom, so let's see what happens as the year progresses. Number 5, Jada Pinkett Smith. Cheating rumors and dating scandals followed Jada and Will throughout their entire relationship. Since day one, people were convinced that they were in an open relationship or had just been straight up cheating on each other. Turns out that those rumors were kind of true, because ahead of the release of her book Worthy, Jada sat down with People magazine and every other news outlet to share some inside info. The most revealing one was that herself and Will Smith were actually separated for 7 years. Of course, that's not all though. Jada is slowly ruining that guy's life and then some. When Jada revealed the truth about her separation from Will, she claimed that by the time they reached 2016, they just became exhausted with each other. The news of their separation was a mild shock at best, because Super Sleuth fans claim that they had proof Will and Jada were separated a long time ago. Some of the clips that were submitted as evidence of Will and Jada just prove it, because Will and Jada was on Red Table Talk and he looks drained. He just looks like a man dealing with so much mentally speaking. In her conversation with Will, she literally says that herself and Will had basically broken up, but instead of just outright admitting the information, she decided to hold on to it until the release of her book. A lot of Jada fans commented on the resurfaced clips, and we can all agree just Will is having a rough time, and I just feel for this guy at this point. I could go on and on about how terrible Jada Pinkett Smith is, but I've only got a couple of minutes and I already wrote a lot of lists about why she's bad, so go check them out. Number 4, Mark Wahlberg. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991, and despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids cartoon, the crew had a small following and garnered quite a bit of success. Enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted, picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark play the leading man, Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by the Chinese triads. He had a successful acting career that's recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks great at 52, so please don't hurt me, Mark Wahlberg. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the time he was 13. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested at the age of 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of hallucinogens when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time confirmed that Mark did have a bit of a racial bias with his upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who, wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which made contact and knocked one of them unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of a 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life forever. So far, that promise seems to be kept, and I can personally confirm that he's a very polite and patient person, because he watched a movie at a theater I used to work at. He travels with like 5 people at all times. It's a little intimidating. Number 3, Margot Robbie. Margot may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she may be a psycho. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margot reminisced about a little prank she pulled on an old babysitter. It involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I'm forced to use for See, they bleep it out. Apparently, Margot has just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just was not as cool as Talia, her old babysitter, so she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After a particularly trying day where Margot refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good and grabbed ketchup, a stabby-jabby device, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. The old I'm kinda dead routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and just jogged out the door. She was gone. She traumatized the woman, who quit, and Margot successfully got her old babysitter back. But that's very messed up, and Margot was so young when she did that. That is so dark, a dark place for someone's mind to go that early on. Was she secretly a little crazy this whole time? Might explain why she is the best Harley Quinn we've ever seen on screen. Number 2, Tim Allen. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear, the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. And while he may have played a family man on TV, a lot of fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some pretty bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a couple of bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, there was a guy from the government just next to his car like, oh, 650, all right, well, if you got 650, then you're going to jail. However, that sentence was never served, and it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, it led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state one, so he was able to ignore that new policy. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. So think about this entire entry and tell me that wouldn't be a great movie. Number 1, Danny Matheson. Danny Matheson was that 70s show's popular boy, and it helped launch several careers, including Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher, and of course himself. Danny was also on this show, and it turns out the allegations against him date back to 2004 and were reported in 2004. Danny was still on the show when an investigation took place. 4 women reported that he had mistreated them physically, prompting local law enforcement to halt production of that 70s show and bring Danny in for questioning. The investigation brought little to no actual evidence to the table because it was just that time, so Danny was let go and the whole thing was forgotten about. But that means that Ashton and Mila watched this dude shut down their project and still said, hey, he's a great guy. When the charges come up again 15 years later, people are still sticking to his side that he was friends with, but it turns out that he was an actual menace and a horrible person, and he's gonna go to jail. Thankfully, in 2023, it's a lot easier to confirm allegations like this, and he was recently sentenced to 3 years in prison.
And at number 10, Paris Hilton's boarding school. In 2020, Paris Hilton opened up about her traumatic childhood after keeping it a secret for most of her life. In her documentary, This Is Paris, Hilton alleged that she'd been subjected to toxic and harmful treatment while attending Polo Canyon School in Utah, which was a boarding school for troubled teens. Hilton revealed that while she was there, she would be isolated in solitary confinement for no reason and be forced to take pills that made her feel numb. Paris and her entire family kept this a secret for her entire time that Paris was a socialite and an A-list star. Along with her difficult childhood, Paris also exposed that her voice was faked, and she made it sound higher to play into the dumb blonde stereotype. And at number 9, Joan Crawford. Back in old Hollywood, they didn't have the beauty products that we have today, and actors were forced to use alternative measures to look their best on camera. Actress Joan Crawford took this to the extreme and admitted to soaking her eyes in boric acid every week to make them, quote, sparkle on camera. She exposed this years later in her autobiography called My Way of Life. When talking about this beauty regimen, Crawford said once a week she'd steam her face, apply a mask, and soak her eyes in boric acid, casually instructing, quote, while the mask is working, place pads soaked in witch hazel and boric acid over your eyelids and put on your favorite music. Obviously, this was an extremely bad idea that could have made her go blind, but she risked it all just to look better. And at number 8, the black box. We are just now scratching the surface of the horrific things that child actors had to endure in the days of old Hollywood. Sadly, one of the punishments adults on set would use when a child actor misbehaved was putting them in a thing called a black box. This was a closed-in box where the actor was forced to sit on an actual block of ice as punishment. Shirley Temple spoke of this box in her autobiography and called it an exploitation of her childish innocence. In her book, she said that if any child on the set of Baby Burlesque misbehaved, they were locked in a windowless sound booth dubbed the punishment box, where they'd be forced to sit on a block of ice. Temple was sent to the box several times in her tenure as a child star. Temple added, quote, far as I can tell, the black box did no lasting damage on my psyche. Its lesson of life, however, was profound and unforgettable. Time is money. Wasted time means wasted money means trouble. And at number 7, Jackie Cooper. Stories like this are so horrible, I truly hope this is still not happening today. Actor Jackie Cooper shared a terrible memory of when he was working on set. While he was filming the movie Skippy, Cooper was not able to make himself cry. So the director, who happened to be his uncle, threatened to kill his dog if he didn't cry. Norman Turog, the uncle and director, left lasting trauma on Cooper. In his autobiography, Cooper said about the situation, quote, I began sobbing so hysterically that it was almost too much for the scene. Turog had to quiet me down by saying perhaps my dog had survived the shot, that if I hurried and calmed down a little and did the scene the way he wanted, we would go see if my dog was still alive. Cooper ended up earning the nomination for Best Actor in a Leading Role for his performance in 1931. He was just 9 years old, and he's still the youngest nominee ever for the award. And at number 6, morality clauses. Back in the day, the studios basically owned the actors that they signed, and they made them sign their life away. Once they became an actor for a major studio, the actor totally belonged to them and was not able to make major life decisions without consulting executives. Many of these clauses forced female actors to stay unmarried so they were more marketable to men. Others even forced women to terminate their pregnancies so they would not waste any time that could be spent filming. The studios claimed that these clauses were to, quote, prevent stars from destroying their value through scandal. Stars like Lana Turner, Judy Garland, and Jeanette MacDonald were all held to these clauses, and they would disguise the hospital visits and claim they were for ear infections or other minor treatments. Halfway number 5, closeted LGBT plus actors. To continue along the lines of morality clauses, another use of those clauses were to closet LGBT plus actors, even forcing some of them into sham marriages just to keep up appearances. This part of the clause revolved around not, quote, forfeiting the respect of the public. If the actor breached this part of the contract and had a relationship that was not approved, they would risk losing using their entire salary for the role. Also, if the actor was outed, that would mean the end of their career either way. Gay actor Rock Hudson's struggle with his identity was revealed in the biography All That Heaven Allows. In that book, it was exposed that a magazine planned to out him back in the day. At that time, Hudson's agent was the only person who knew the truth and proposed that he get married to squash the story. Hudson immediately married Phyllis Gates, but they divorced a couple years later. The secret stayed with him until days before he passed away. And at number 4, Buddy Ebsen. Back in the days of old Hollywood, the makeup and prosthetics weren't what they are today, and oftentimes the costumes that the actors would wear would be toxic. One fact is that the Wicked Witch's green face in The Wizard of Oz was made with toxic paint. Buddy Ebsen, who was supposed to play the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, did not do so because he had an extreme reaction to the aluminum dust from the makeup. Because of this reaction, he was replaced in the movie with actor Jack Haley. Ebsen was ultimately hospitalized and forced out of Oz's production. For years after the movie, Ebsen claimed that the makeup caused permanent breathing problems for the rest of his life. And at number 3, Jack Nicholson's sister was his mother. This one isn't really related to Hollywood, more so a secret that a Hollywood actor kept for a number of years. Jack Nicholson kept a huge secret from the public almost his entire life, mostly because he didn't know the truth until he was an adult. His entire life, Jack was raised with a sister named June, who was 17 years older than him. But when his parents died, Jack's older sister revealed that Jack was actually her child, and her parents raised him as their own to hide the stigma from a young pregnancy. And Jack's parents were actually his grandparents the whole time. And at number 2, Rihanna's father had a second life. Rihanna has spoken in the past about her tense relationship with her father. Throughout her life, he was addicted to alcohol and cheated on her mother essentially their whole marriage. But one day, a horrible secret was revealed, and apparently the entire time he was married, Rihanna's father had a second family. He had 3 other children as well, 2 daughters and a son. At one point, Rihanna was even forced to sue her father because he was selling services involving her name and likeness, although she later dropped that suit. And finally, number 1, hidden children. Being a movie star means that you need to be perfect 24/7. That includes hiding pregnancies from the public or trying to make them go away. Celebrities like Kylie Jenner kept her pregnancy totally a secret until after the birth to ensure the media did not affect her. However, there are tons of celebrities who completely hid secret love children from the public. Aerosmith's frontman Steven Tyler had a secret child well in his heyday, so he and the mother decided to hide the paternity from the child. When Liv Tyler was 8, she found out the truth, and so did the media. Apparently, she was forced to put the pieces of the puzzle together herself when she could no longer ignore the resemblance she had to the singer and his other kids.